Hi, friends. This is Katy Acheson, Executive Director of the Cape Cod Blue Economy Foundation. Welcome to another episode of Coastal Characters. And with me today, I have Chris Cataldo. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Excellent.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
And Chris works for the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod, but is also on several boards. And we go back a few years now. What did we start? Cape Leadership in 2022,
I believe it is,
yeah,
Katie.
so,
yes, I know.
So welcome, Chris. Tell us your epic title at work, because there's like a comma and a hyphen.
Well, first of all, to even be invited to a segment called Coastal Characters, I think I have a new piece to add to my title. But my official title at the bank, I am a Vice President, Branch Manager, Small Business Specialist.
And like I said, there's a lot of punctuation in there.
Yes, yep, exactly. That is my official title. And I operate out of the East Harwich office. We're the furthest east out of the 9 branches, typically in the East Harwich to Provincetown. Typically is our turf as far as clientele, and again, have been in this capacity since 2019.
All right. I want to start off with a non-work question, just a relaxed, easy, get to know you question. What is your go-to ice cream order?
Oh, gosh, Purple Cow.
Purple Cow,
it's
amazing. That tells
Cow.
me so much about you. Emac and Bolio's.
It was a quick decision. and cookie dough is a close second,
Okay.
and again, we could keep going down the rankings, but it'd be Purple Cow. And the homemade ice cream, that's again, classic.
It's Cape Cod. It's Massachusetts, really.
I didn't realize it was a thing until I arrived here on the island, so to speak, so.
Do you do cone, cup, any toppings?
It's got to be in a cup because I am a mess with the ice cream. I tend to be very hands-on with ice cream.
You get really into it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I need the cup as as a baseline, if you will. But if a cone happens to fall in, hey, I'm not going to turn my nose to it, Katie.
Let me introduce you to a concept.
Okay, I'm listening.
Waffle bowl.
Oh, gosh, yes. I've come across these a couple times.
That sounds like your jam.
I have to say, it certainly does sound right up my alley.
Perfect. And we want to make sure that we're not spilling ice cream, because anyone that has seen Chris out at an event knows that best dressed, first of all, from the best dressed bank on Cape Cod, all right, when there's more than one Coop member out there, because they are red carpet ready. But last time I saw you at an event, you had 3 tips to your pocket square. What are we? Amazing.
They do call that the Pompeii, believe it or not.
Incredible.
But I will say that at the bank we do strive for the red carpet, white glove service, I will say.
So good.
Dressing the part, I guess, is just one component. But, again, it does depend on the job site. I've got no problem putting on some boots and going knee-deep into some water. And, again, definitely, it's funny how in the banking business you get a taste of it all. So many different industry market segments, and the blue one happens to be my favorite. And of course, in our market, the most impactful, I would say.
So let's talk about your perception of blue economy. What to you is blue economy, especially through the lens of small business banking?
Yeah, I think when I think blue economy, I think the ocean. And when I think the ocean, obviously there's so much that comes with it. Tourism is a big piece and everything that goes into that facet. But also, obviously you've got the fishermen, you've got marine construction, you've got the scientific community, which is so significant. And quite frankly, now you've got wind coming into play. I always find it so fascinating, wind and the fishing. And, I have to say, in my book of business down in Harwich, in the outer Lower Cape, we have so many clients that would classify as blue. And so I like to think I've become a specialist of blue, so to speak.
All right. Excellent. We've got a blue banker.
Exactly.
Blue economy small business banker. We'll see how long we can make your title.
Yeah.
It's not printed on your name tag, but if it was, you would need a big, a whiteboard, basically.
Definitely.
It's amazing.
We'd have to make sure it floats, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Keeping to the blue theme.
Or get you a life jacket with your title printed on it.
That's right. I could use one of those, I think. I really do, perhaps.
So take us on a little journey, because what I want this podcast to kind of be about is getting to know how someone gets from one place to another. How did you land in this career, in this space, and with this particular bank? I know that you're wash ashore like almost all of us. So take us on a little Chris development journey here? Where did it all start?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. My grandmother and I were very close. I was the oldest cousin, oldest grandchild. We used to roll pennies. I walked into a retail bank branch with a shoebox filled with coin, and a teller behind the line had, said, "Oh, you've got a nice smile. Seem like a nice guy. We're looking for some people." And next thing you know, I ended up starting off as a bank teller. I was 19 years old.
Literally rolled into the job.
That's it. Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. I went to Suffolk University. I was in downtown Boston for a number of years, and thought I was going to go to law school. That was kind of the original plan, and got involved in banking. And funny enough, I was able to transfer into the financial district. I worked at 100 Federal, 175 Federal. Worked for Bank of America for 7 years. And the idea is that while I was there, I had some great, people that were allowing me to essentially go to school full time and work at the same time. So, again, I was clocking a lot of hours, but, saw a lot of interesting action, learned a lot. I have to say, Bank of America was like Paris Island for bankers. They taught me everything I know. And then I always tell my clients here at the Coop, I'm using the power for good. That's what I always say. Now, when I met my wife, that was my introduction, really, to the Cape. And essentially, her father was a builder, built a couple hundred houses between Harwich and Sandwich, and was really compassionate about the local banking scene. And so when he met me, realized I was a banker, it never ended. He was always plugging, the local banks, and he was always saying, you've got to come down and work for a local bank, that this is you've got to, again, you want to be impactful. That's how you're going to do it. And at one point or another, I gave it a shot, and so I interviewed, and I got offers at a couple of the local banks, and I had done some research, and I chose the Coop, and again, I've been in this very same role since I was hired right before the pandemic, and it was very interesting. The Coop, had made a strategic decision, which I have to say, you got to give the bank credit when it's due, and they decided they're going to make these branch managers small business specialists. And so I was brought in as the kind of like the prototype, like G.I. Joe.
Okay.
I was the first one kind of to come in, and the pandemic happened about 2 months later, November 19. But what's interesting, Katie, when you talk about how people get to where they are, right? So the pandemic rolls in, and some of the folks listening to the podcast are going to know what I'm about to bring up, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP. I know there's people out there that have PTSD from PPP. And so some folks in the audience may have some different reactions when I bring this up. But the Coop jumped right in. We didn't beat an eyelash. I mean, I have to say, again, the leadership of the Coop, I'm so proud of the Coop. And we jumped right in. Nobody even knew what was going on. This program was so fresh, and the bank knew that this was important. We jumped on it. And as the branch manager of the East Harwich office, I essentially became the frontline
expert in this stuff, right?
I was a PPP frontline officer, essentially for the outer lower Cape. And it's funny, before the podcast, I pulled one of our quarterly updates back from 2020. And I couldn't believe it. 900 PPP applications, and we saved approximately 15,000 jobs.
That's amazing.
Now,
Bravo. That's incredible.
Well, this is how I learned how to be a business banker. And this, quite frankly, was my introduction to the blue economy, right? So my banking, it's funny, I started in 2009, right, as the crisis was happening in 2008, right? I was BO, some of my first customers were countrywide.
Do not start any new jobs, Chris.
I know. So what's interesting is my experience in banking has always come at times of crisis. And so, again, right, what's the best way to learn than under the heat?
Deep end, yeah.
During the PPP time, I didn't let one phone call, one voicemail, one email. I mean, we worked tirelessly. It was so interesting, actually. My team became quite strong because all I was doing was PPP. So they had no choice. They had to literally plug the gaps because I was getting so many calls. I was so involved in that piece. And it taught me a lot about business and the blue. And when it was all over, there was so many folks, again, blue economy related businesses that remembered how it went down. And there was a rapport, there was a trust, and for me, selfishly, a knowledge that I had gained. And so, I really, in many ways, became a business banker, specializing again in blue, really under those circumstances. So it was kind of interesting, but it's been really, fascinating as well. And I feel like, again, being able to help, but also being able to understand what is such a unique part of the economy.
You are such an integral piece in that role of helping small businesses with the kind of things that they usually don't have time for, right? Or that isn't in their language, or that they're so in such a state of desperation at that time in particular, right? That you can assure them that they're on the right path, that they're doing the right thing. And I think that is something that everyone was running a business or an employment position in that time, and even myself, I was at a smaller chamber. If I didn't do that, I didn't get paid, right? And if it weren't for the bankers on our board that were looking out for me and looking out for all the businesses, just like you were, answering the phone every time it rang, because even just knowing that there was a person makes the world of difference, right? Even just knowing that don't panic, call Chris. It's incredible. So thank you so much for that.
Oh,
really.
Katy, I appreciate it. And quite frankly, during the pandemic, we weren't isolated, right? A lot of us in banking had to continue to work. We continued to report for duty. I still have the notice in my dashboard that, was supposed to get me through the National Guard checkpoint if things had been shut down. And, we stayed busy. I have to say, ironically, it was like the best thing that could have happened because I was so distracted and focused on trying to help. But, there was a heavy weight. I knew I couldn't leave until like these calls were made. And we had to, there was certain things that had to happen before I left. And sometimes, it just took a while.
You were triage for small business.
There's no doubt. And, I have to say, so before the pandemic, right, when I used to kind of cold call and warm call, and again, in the banking world, in the business development world, we're always trying, again, to grow the business. And after the pandemic, after PPP, there was so much more of a warm welcome, I have to say. And that, so having the bank gave me the tools, and I was able to use those tools. And then after the fact, the community appreciated that quite a bit. And to this day, we continue to grow our business and have a lot of really faithful, loyal, good clients, specifically Blue, by the way.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the geography that you're in too, right? There's
I love
literally
the
water. You just turn around and there's water.
I always tell people that because we're surrounded by water, everybody has to behave. And in
wait, back up. What?
That's right. Yes, this is one of my. This is a philosophy I have.
Tell me about this.
So being on the Cape, right? I've worked in different parts of the state, and being on the Cape, there's some observations that I've made, and one of them is that when you are surrounded by water and there is limited space, everyone has to behave a little bit better. Now, what that means, I think, is that the Cape is a small place. Everybody knows each other, and so when you're conducting yourself in any professional setting, there's just more at stake, and I find that the people of the Cape are more apt to work together because we have to. It's not not necessarily because we want to, but we have to.
Because there's a limit of resources and space, and
we need each other, Katy. We need each other, and especially when you look at the blue economy, right? There's so much interconnection going on between so many different segments, and let's face it, you always hear that term, work smarter, not harder, right? And that's what I think this podcast and what you're doing at the Chamber, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help businesses work smarter. And as a business specialist, right? That's my favorite part of the title. I was going to say don't tell anyone, but I guess we're on the podcast.
We're doing the business specialist piece here today.
But I will say, the branch is an incredible incubator. It's a laboratory. The branch is where there's so much economic activity that goes on. And I have to say, being right on the front lines, having my fingers right on the pulse, it allows me to be really, effective as a tool or a resource.
That's so cool.
I mean, we try to save money, make money, provide peace of mind, safety, security. I mean, that's really what's happening essentially at the bank. But being Blue, being unique, right? A lot of banks, right? A lot of places don't understand how it works here on the Cape or in an environment like this, and being part of an institution that truly does, that's what, and I'm a history buff, that. And
yes.
I love how, our bank started again right at that time when the Chamber of Commerce began. And, again, the fishing industry had been in trouble. The Cape was kind of a desolate place after the Civil War, and essentially, right, the international tourist boom. But, that's really, I think, Katy, you and I are part of the boom, right?
Yes.
We're part of the ripple.
Yes.
So it's pretty neat.
And I really like that, I always end up saying, oh, the Cape is such a small town.
Oh, it is.
Because someone knows my dad, or someone knows your wife, or someone knows someone who's done something, or, so-and-so who did this or that or whatever, right? And it really is, we're close to the water. There's not a lot of room to run away.
You can't.
You can't run away. And there are programs like the Cape Leadership Institute that you and I went through together that helped bond, were there 30 or so of us?
I was just going to bring up, remember Cod City? Remember that segment? Shout out to Amanda Brevin and some of our Cape Cod
Yes.
Leadership Institute, which has been around since '96, at least 900 alumni at this point.
Wow.
But I remember one of the sessions, we actually pretended that we were, in an actual town meeting, and we had, they called it Cod City.
Cod City.
I always laugh, Cod City.
And the highway was slides.
Well, that's
Water
it.
slides.
That's it. Oh my
Yes.
gosh! For anyone out there that's never been a part of Cape Cod Leadership Institute, please look us up. Be a part of that because it is.
I think I named my character Karen.
Oh gosh, I was one of the angry townspeople. I had so much fun
fun
that night. Oh my goodness!
But it really is something that it spanned the entire Cape, and it was a way to get us into all these different spaces, but also work together on projects that help the community. And our class in particular, I feel like gelled so beautifully. It speaks more to, it's called leadership, but it really is about building community and awareness. And I think what you do for work, what I do for work, and building community around the business that we do, the work that we do, is really about protecting and taking care of everyone else around us. And I think that's very Cape Cod. I think that's very New England, where I don't know if you've seen the map, where it's 4 sections of the United States, and it says, like, in one corner, acts kind is mean.
I have seen that one.
Okay,
yes.
so the one in the Northeast is acts mean is kind.
Oh goodness! Oh gosh!
We don't want to, like, we'll do a quick, like, hey, how are you? Like, we literally, instead of saying hello, most people greet, how you doing?
Oh,
how you doing? How you doing? No answer, just the question. And we're not gonna, like, I know my neighbors because I live in a small street, but, like,
of course,
it's more likely people know the dog's name than their actual neighbor's name. We just keep to ourselves. When you go into a store, like a retail store, you might get oh, hi, let me know if you need any help. Someone's not going to follow you around and, like, try to, like, here, this would look great on you, and, like, But this is the story, right? If you break down and your tires bust on the side of the highway, someone's going to roll up and insult you and fix your tire. Right? It's very Cape Cod of us.
Classic.
Right?
Oh,
but I
gosh.
think that comes all the way back to, even in a banking position, your job is to help people. Comes right back down to you saved how many jobs?
According to this memo, which again, this is back in 2020,
Yeah.
quarterly, it was 900 PPP applications, 15,000 jobs. That was an estimate, obviously.
That's a whole town.
That's a lot. That's a lot of
That's
folks.
a whole town.
That's a lot of souls on board,
Yeah.
and that's how I look at it. There are a couple. There are quite a few folks when they get pulled up on that screen at that bank. Chris Cataldo comes up as the officer, and the way I see it is, I'm the captain of that ship, and I always tell clients when I set them up, please behave yourself, because
Please,
I
my
will.
reputation's on the line.
I will have to answer for
My
that.
name's
so.
coming up.
Exactly. So we try to, again, make sure that I joke around with the clients. You're in the training period. So that's, again.
They get like a 6-month probation period.
But, the business owners really appreciate the transparency. They appreciate upfront. They want to know what needs to be done. We want to know what their pain points are. We want to know what the opportunities are for us to be able to help them. And
Yep.
like you said, help is such a key theme. Service is such a key theme. I will say that mutuality, right? A lot of people don't appreciate the fact that this bank of ours, that these mutual community banks don't have shareholders, that there's no quarterly shareholder dance, I call it, right? And the idea is that our banks, we have the ability to essentially do things that other banks would not be able to do. And that, I think, is what makes us a unique, partner, especially in the blue community, where there's such seasonal swings and such unique characteristics to the way these blue businesses operate and function. And so to have a good knowledge of that and a real confidence that we can help, that we know how to help, that it's not only going to be okay, but we're going to tell you something you may not have even thought of. And then again, to spark that interest. One of my employees on my way over to the podcast, I was having a conversation and I was explaining how one of our old commercial lenders, who's retired now, and had actually given this couple some advice that led to one of the most successful businesses on Cape, and
Amazing.
all because a banker saw that these folks were qualified, that this made sense, saw the opportunity, connected the dots, and next thing you know, the people of the Cape are getting good service for decades, right? And that to me, that's a beautiful thing.
It is. It's really extraordinary. I want to ask you a little bit about your role on some of your boards.
Oh gosh, yes.
Because you're on. there's only 3 in your bio,
Yes,
but share a
yes.
little bit about your role, because there's anyone that's worked in nonprofit and has a board has a banker.
Yes.
So
yes.
can you share a little bit about, like, does the Coop have a policy, a volunteer policy, and how does that translate to how many boards or how many hours you give, and also about the kinds of organizations that you're interested in participating in? Because I know Cape Media Center here is one of them.
Yes, what a great question. And also one of my favorite things about the Coop, right? What an excellent organization. There are not many employers where you'll pull the job description rec, right? And there's a line in there that actually literally says that part of my job at the bank is to serve on local boards, right? So we are actually told that that is a part of our role. That's part of our responsibility as community bankers, is that we are to give back through the form of board service, right? And as you had mentioned, bankers on boards, very important piece, right? Very important component to the board. And so when I first arrived at the Coop, right, I was very excited, right? I saw the job description and I said, I'm going to get to serve on a local board. I was all excited, actually, believe it or not. I really was. There's people in the audience that are
foreshadowing, like, what changed?
Oh, I'm going to get into some of that, but not that it changed. But people are rolling their eyes like, "Oh God, board service." He's excited. Oh gosh. But the thing is that I was very excited, and as you may or may not know, I had some experiences running for political office in the past. I ran for selectman in 14, 15. I ran for the U.S. House as an independent in 16. During those runs, public access was such a key piece, right? And this is getting into my first board, which is the Cape Cod Media Center, which, again, we're actually sitting in right now, believe it or not. And we're working on building a new facility as we speak, and I'm very proud of that. But long story short, during the campaign, right, it became clear it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for TV ads, for TV access. There was actually, I'm not going to mention who exactly, but there was a debate going on, and a public access station was hosting it, and I wasn't invited, right? They only invited the Democrat and the Republican, and I, as the independent unenrolled, I was not invited. So we decided that we would look up who the board of directors was, and I sent them all certified letters telling them they were on the wrong side of history, and then I tweeted the executive director out publicly and said, do you really want to be that organization that doesn't invite all the candidates that are on the ballot? I got invited to the debate. I even got an exclusive interview, which was so nice. And do you know, when it was over, I said, if I ever get a chance to serve on a board, I'm going to serve on a public access board, because it's incredible the way that I was able to get access to something that I couldn't afford, and that for American democracy is quite important. And I was in a meeting the other day regarding this board service, and I was saying to the particular group that, public access is one of the last unfettered, unbiased, clear channels of communication, and we serve a critical role. And so as a candidate for office, I just saw that I appreciate how important that is. So that's what Christina Bologna at the time, I said, Christina, what board should I serve on? The Cape Cod Media, the Cape Cod Television Corporation, they were looking for a board member. So that's how I started on my first board.
Okay.
And who's serving on the board but Bob Cody, the executive director of CLI, right? Mm-hmm. And Marty Bermel, who at the time was the treasurer of CLI. And long story short, I met them before I actually ended up over in CLI. And that's another one of my favorite boards, right? Cape Cod Leadership Institute. And after the class of 22, where Katy and I are.
Best class ever.
It is the best class ever.
Sorry, everybody in 2019.
Yeah, it's good. It's nice to be on a podcast where they can't talk over you and interrupt.
That's right.
Best class ever,
That's right?
right?
Best class ever.
Should say that in slow motion.
We'll hashtag it.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So after 22 in our service at the class, I was asked to come onto the board, and so I've been helping since then. And actually, it's funny, I was a tour guide when I was a kid at the State House for about a decade,
and for our class.
Yeah, and so I ended up now part of my service on that board is I actually, during the government session, I actually am the one that gives the tour of the State House, and I've worked closely with one of the other alumni members, David Vieira, who serves in the House, and we've been able to facilitate a partnership with the National Guard that involves Joint Base Cape Cod briefing the class while we actually take a military transport vehicle up to the State House. We've done it about 4 times now. It's been excellent. I mean, CLI goes back 30 years. The sessions change, things change. And being in that board capacity, I'm able to really have an impact on what the leaders of Cape Cod are seeing and hearing. And so, I take it very seriously. I really want to make sure that the leaders of Cape Cod are acquainted with the real situation. And, of course, want to make sure that, the program lives up to what it's been doing all these years. So CLI is very important to me, and I really enjoy my service there. I do serve on the Cape and Islands Workforce Development Board with Kara, which has been absolutely phenomenal, such an incredible executive director, and, of course, the programming that goes on with the careers and, of course, the workforce is so critical and ties right in with the blue economy, right?
Absolutely.
That's another piece. And then I do serve, Harwich Communal Council for Housing, obviously a very, very dear to my heart local organization. My clients, my employees, there's a lot that organization impacts. And I also find them to be really unique in the housing space. Obviously, when we talk about the issues at Cape Cod, you've got water quality, you've got housing, you get a lot of issues. And when I look at HESH, as I call it HESH, Howard
We're getting the lingo. Yep.
But essentially, the model it's very, boutique. It's different than hack. Again, you have these different strategies happening to try to tackle the problems of the Cape. And so, again, as a banker, to be able to get involved in some of these things, it's pretty neat, I have to say. And it's so funny. I'll be in these board meetings, and I'll just at this point, I'll kind of just say it how it is, and I'm saying to myself after the fact, like, wow, you're really providing value. You're able to give information that's helping decisions being made to help efficiency take place, and again, I really feel like I'm actually using my power for good.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I want to just hone in on the uniqueness of like the Harwich group, right? That what are we calling it? HASH?
Yeah, oh yes, yeah, Harwich Communal Council for Housing. Such a unique organization and does an incredible job. Includes a school, by the way, which has been it's been fascinating. Just again, being a part of the behind the scenes, administration. And oversight of some of this stuff. It's really interesting and really impactful.
Yeah.
Again, people's lives are being influenced and impacted in such a positive way. And, if I'm going to go to work, I'm going to work in a way that's impactful. And, getting back to the Coop and the policies of board service. And, one of the great things about the Cape Cod Leadership Institute is that you carve out the time to do the program. And then after the fact, you realize you can carve out the time to do the service.
Really, 4 or 5 hours every other week is totally doable.
Now,
right?
I do a lot of my service after hours, and I do find myself again. But I'm one of those people, Katy, that has to stay busy. I love to stay engaged. I'm a very passionate person. The kids are young. I've got 2 girls, 5 and 7. I have no interest in getting into the political arena anytime soon.
It's kind of expensive when you've got kids on top of it, right?
Yeah. So right now I'm focusing on, again, service and trying to really make an impact on the Cape and make it a better place for the kids. Because, again, their only home they've ever known is Barnstable County, my 2 girls. And so, again, when I look at the issues of the Cape and what's going on, I really, to be honest with you, I want them both to work in blue.
Let's go.
I guess this is being recorded in 2025.
Yes.
They're class of 2038 and 2037.
We'll see if I'm still in the role, but we'll see what we can do.
But I say that, and this is coming from a banker, right? I've been a banker for 15 years, and blue is good.
Yeah, and blue is diverse too, right? So we're talking about getting salty and growing, oysters, or we're talking about building AI and robotics technology. We're talking about installation of huge pieces of machinery, underwater welling, which sounds like the scariest and most, badass job ever. But we're also talking about small business banking, and we're also talking about nonprofit work, and we're also talking about policy, advocacy, education, kelp science, and food industry, right? Especially on Cape Cod, how we move the food that we get from the ocean to restaurants. There's lots of different pipelines and lots of pieces that can be filled in different unique ways, which is really cool. Rolling back to the town piece, like town by town versus county, or even the region, which includes Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, right, which are huge cultural sort of icons in themselves. What I really like about having those small groups and having someone who lives in that space involved in that group, but then also you're working on boards that encompass the entire region, and for a bank that encompasses the entire region, is that you're seeing all the layers, right? And you're seeing all the way those layers intertwine or don't, right? And where all the gaps are. And I think that that's something that I think it happens in other places in the country, not all of them. You get boroughs and things like that, but I think Cape Cod has, and I'm fairly confident that almost everybody who's listening to this is going to be from the Cape, but we have these subregions, right? We have lower, upper, middle, mid, and outer, but we also have one side of the Bass River Bridge and the other. We also have 6A and 28. We also have, the people that will take Route 6 and won't. We have, so there's lots of different sort of demographics within all those spaces. So the value of the town specific, the value of the region specific, and the overlap or lack thereof is extraordinarily important, right? And so that
Totally.
To say that when you're at a branch in a town, to have a piece of your advocacy and your volunteer work be related to that neighborhood is really extraordinary, right?
It's special,
Yeah.
actually. It's
Yeah.
very special. I consider it a great privilege and a great honor to preside over the Harwich branch. And I know our branch kind of encompasses, again, many more towns throughout the outer lower. Again, Chatham, Brewster, Orleans, Eastham, Truro, Provincetown. Again, we cover that whole region. But it's just the people of the Cape, I'm telling you, Katie, if we surveyed them, I bet you most of them, their favorite color would be blue. And I'm saying, there is a tie-in here.
Yep. Okay, you keep going back. We're both wearing pink, but we're talking blue.
It unites folks. And I
Yeah.
think that that's what creates this unique environment where people want to work together because they really do love the same things. There's some real shared values
Why
here.
are we here?
Exactly. I mean,
Why is anybody here?
that is, I think, an important question to ask.
Why did the bear cross the bridge?
That was interesting. Didn't he swim across the canal? Was it a she? I'm not sure. I don't.
There's been at least two bears.
There's been
one
two.
One of them has a book. One of them just got turned around halfway across twice and just ravished Wareham. Sorry, everyone.
It's all right.
In continental Cape Cod.
That's why living over the bridge is safer. Is that one
Sure.
of the best?
Yeah,
But
maybe.
I'll tell you, 48% of the workforce, half the workforce, so,
Not quite.
crossing those bridges.
About
So it's less.
It's about 27 to 30%.
So still significant amount of folks
And that's
crossing
like
that bridge.
lifetime of Cape Cod, really.
We're definitely watching the bridges. I'm so happy about the advocacy going on there, and definitely, again, as a resident of Bourne, we have a front row seat to the bridge. It's funny you mentioned, my perspective of being kind of in that vantage point where I can see things happening in different layers, and it is a very interesting seat, and I don't want to call it a seat because I don't want to sit. I want to stand, and it's a vantage point, and I really find it quite unique to be able to dabble, to be able to make suggestions, make introductions, try to get kind of things happening. And, what's really neat is that I don't realize half the time how much I know. And I'm oftentimes I surprise myself like, oh, you really do know what's going on over here, And, the thing is that what's going on over here is very special.
Yes.
And I consider it something that needs to be protected. And when we look at the challenges ahead, especially, again, with housing, with water quality, we really do need to take some measures here to address those things. But then when you look at the economy and the jobs and, again, the cost of living, right? There's the Cape tax, they call it. Oh, my gosh. But that's why we have a chamber. That's why we have banks, right? We're trying to stimulate economic activity.
Yep.
And the ocean and the blue economy is, I think, a huge driver of that.
Yep.
I think you were saying that only Cape Codders are going to be listening. I'll tell you, I think that there are people throughout the world that look at the Cape and that look at us as an example of what can be done.
Yeah.
And what has to be done, because I think our problems are extreme, and that means that they require solutions to be met, and we're going to be ahead of the curve.
We're very easy to spot from space.
Yeah,
Right? And we're literally on the front lines of that.
I love that. You're
Right?
You're right. You're
Okay.
absolutely right.
So it's one of those places where things are going to happen first.
Yep.
Right?
I love being on the elbow too. I always tell folks, you drive till the highway goes to one lane and just keep going straight, and that's where you'll find me right at the very end.
Right at the very
And
end.
they're like, how can you do that reverse commute? And I'm like, I used to go to Boston.
Yeah,
I'm like, are you kidding? I'll drive to the end of the sandbar any day of the week.
Yeah, it's not as bad as people think.
Exactly.
It's really a small space.
Oh, it is. It is indeed.
But I think we are all drawn to, like, in a very visceral way, to the water, right? It's what brought us here. It's what keeps us here. It's such a gorgeous place.
Now, I will say, right, some of my favorite clients are the sea captains, right? I love the stories.
Gosh, charming people.
I romanticize over the sea captain life, the fishermen. I have so many of them, and they're so fascinating, and the stories I hear. And then when you see, right, transitions. I had one fisherman family, 400 years they've been fishing on the Cape.
Wow.
Now they're doing wind.
Oh, wow.
When you see that happen, right, that's when you're seeing trends take place, changes take place, the regulations with fishing in particular. But, as a banker, it's the permits, the boats, the complexities to some of these transactions. And, quite frankly, I've kind of gotten good at something that a lot of bankers don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's more fun.
Yes.
You clients by the water, you blue clients are the best. You folks are the most fun, honestly.
I'll tell you, we'll see how colorful stories get when we get some fishermen in here.
Oh, some of the stories I can't even repeat.
Yes, we'll have to.
And
do
they're
some
fascinating.
editing.
I mean, when you're out there in the ocean, you're interacting with other countries. There are so many fascinating scenarios that
Most
unfold.
creatures in the ocean are bigger than you.
I had a fisherman in my office the other day who had a diesel engine that needed to be replaced, and he couldn't believe, and I couldn't believe either when he was telling me that there was no place in the United States of America where this diesel engine could be obtained. And he was telling me about how he's going to head up to Canada and break down and how that was. I mean, these fishermen, it's a fascinating game that's played, and
It's a whole different
it's a whole,
globe out there.
whole other ball game. But then when you look at the scientific community in Woods Hole and you look at some of the innovation that's going on there, and even the marine construction, I mean, these seawalls that are going up, some of this it is fascinating. Those are some of my favorite clients, the ones that jack up the properties and build the walls. And as a banker, I don't know, I like that stuff. I like building stuff.
Building things.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up a little bit with this building stuff idea.
Oh, sure.
Okay. What do you do as a hobby that is not monetized or professionalized in any way? What do you like to do on your time?
Oh, you're going to love this, Katie. And I swear I did not plan this.
Okay. This is all scripted, everybody.
So one of my colleagues, pulled up an Amazon Prime deal, and next thing you know, I've got this paddle board. And,
so cool.
I'd always seen people on them, always wanted to try it, never really had the courage to do it, thought it was too big, too expensive, too difficult, this and that. And so now this little thing it's in a backpack, and you pump it up, and you put the fins on. It's pretty cool, I have to say. I can't stand and paddle yet. I'm still trying.
Cool.
I haven't been able to stand and paddle yet. I can kneel and paddle.
Hard.
I can sit and paddle. But I have to say, when I go out there on that paddle board, it is like it is so quiet, so peaceful. There's no cell phones. There's no nothing. You hear the waves crashing. I mean, there's something so special about being out on the water, just floating, right? And sometimes I'll lie back and just look up at the sun and, oh, God, I wasn't paying attention. And next thing you know, I was halfway out Cape Cod Bay. And what turned into a leisurely paddleboard was more of like a fight for survival.
You're going to be the second person that's going to be gobbled
goodness.
by a whale and spit out.
Well, I was out there and I'm like, this fun might be a little dangerous too. So you got to be careful to all those people out there.
Please pay attention. Have a whistle on your life jacket.
I did see about 15 jellyfish, 9-10 feet long. I mean, I haven't seen any sharks, thank God. But, although I don't know, these sharks seem to be driving a lot of economic activity to the Cape.
Oh, they sure are.
The helicopter rides, the boat rides. I mean, these sharks, it's kind of gone reverse, right?
I myself am going on a shark tour in September.
Kidding. Mm-hmm. No kidding.
Yep.
See, this I think is again very interesting trends in this space, but yeah, it's paddleboarding. That's it.
Cool.
Yeah,
love that. That is perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for coming in
Katie.
and for sharing all that story and for just being there for small businesses when.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah,
it's an honor.
It was extraordinary.
It's an honor. I really, truly appreciate the opportunity to serve the people of the Cape.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you, Katie.